Welcome to our channel where we bring you the craziest and weirdest stories from all over the world. In today's episode, we're going to talk about power, money, and murder. These three things are what drive most people in this world, and when combined, can make for one hell of a story. On November 18th, 1979, a man named Carmine Galante was relaxing in his mansion in Staten Island, New York. A former boxer and now crime boss, he was enjoying a nice cigar and some good company. But soon his enjoyment of the day would come crashing down around him. 3 gunshots rang out inside his house, and when the smoke cleared, he had been shot dead. This was no random act of violence, however. This was an execution carried out by none other than the heads of the 5 New York Mafia families, aka the Cosa Nostra. And they had sent a message with this hit. They were sending a message to their own people and the rest of the world that they were back in business. The Mafia, also known as the Italian-American Mafia, or La Cosa Nostra, is a criminal organization whose origins can be traced back to the Sicilian Mafia. Over the years, it has grown into one of the most powerful and feared crime organizations in the world. Although most people think of the Mafia as being only an Italian thing, the truth is that there are Mafia groups all over the world. There is the Russian Mafia, the Chinese Triads, and the Japanese Yakuza, just to name a few. What they all have in common is that they operate in pretty much every country on the planet, and they are involved in all sorts of criminal activities, from drug trafficking to human trafficking to racketeering and extortion. They also have one thing in common. They all answered to the Italian Mafia, at least until recently. You see, while the Italian Mafia may not be as powerful as it once was, it still operates in many countries around the world. So how exactly does it work? Well, the Italian Mafia is made up of 5 families that operate in the United States: the Bonanno crime family, the Colombo crime family, the Gambino crime family, the Genovese crime family, and the Lucchese crime family. Each family is headed by a boss, and there's also a hierarchy below the boss, which includes the underboss, the consigliere, the capo regiments, the soldiers, and the associates. The way it works is that each family has its own territory where it operates, and they don't really interfere with each other. It's businesses. However, if one family wants to expand its territory, they will often have to get permission from the other families. This is because the Mafia is very much like a corporation, and they want to avoid things like turf wars. What's also interesting is that the Mafia is actually structured very similarly to a legitimate business. Each family is like its own little company, and they have departments just like any other business. For example, there is the narcotics department, which deals with drugs. There is the gambling department, which deals with casinos and sports betting. The labor union department, which deals with things like extortion and racketeering. Now that you know a bit about the structure of the Mafia, let's take a look at some of the ways that they make their money. One of the biggest sources of income for the Mafia is gambling. They run illegal casinos, sports betting rings, and lotteries that bring in millions of dollars per year. The Mafia also makes a lot of money from extortion and racketeering. They will often target small businesses that they can threaten into paying them protection money. They will also extort money from individuals who they can blackmail. Another source of income for the Mafia is through their involvement in the sex industry. They run illegal brothels and escort services that generate a lot of revenue. The Mafia also owns a lot of property that they can rent out to criminals who want to hide their money. They also control a lot of legitimate businesses that they use to launder money. This includes restaurants, bars, nightclubs, shops, and even banks. In addition to these sources of income, the Mafia also makes money through more traditional means, such as robbery and theft. They are responsible for a large number of burglaries and robberies every year. But it's not just money that the Mafia is after. They also wield a lot of power, especially in certain parts of the world. In fact, in some places, the Mafia has so much power that it effectively controls the government. This is because they have infiltrated law enforcement and government agencies. They have bribed or threatened the officials into doing their bidding. One of the ways that the Mafia exerts its power is through violence. They're not afraid to use force to get what they want, and they will often target those who they perceive as enemies. The Mafia has also been known to use intimidation tactics to keep people from opposing them. They will often threaten people's families or loved ones if they try to cross the Mafia. But despite all of the power and money that the Mafia has, it is ultimately a criminal organization, and it is constantly at war with the police and other law enforcement agencies. The authorities are always trying to break up mafia operations and bring its members to justice. However, the mafia is a very elusive organization, and it is difficult to infiltrate and bring down. So how did the mafia become so powerful? Well, it's because they are very smart and efficient operators. They are able to move large amounts of money quickly and easily. This allows them to bribe officials and expand their criminal activities. The mafia is also very adaptable and has been able to change with the times. As new technologies have developed, they have adopted them and used them to further their criminal enterprises. For example, they were early adopters of the internet and social media. It's also worth noting that the mafia is very secretive and tight-lipped. Members of the mafia rarely talk to outsiders, and they take secrets to their graves. This makes it difficult for law enforcement to gather intelligence on the organization. But despite all of this secrecy, there have still been some high-profile cases of mafia members turning rat. Some of these rats have provided valuable information that has led to the arrests and convictions of many mafia members. One of the most famous cases of a rat is that of Michael Franchese, a member of the Bonanno crime family who became an informant for the FBI. His information led to the arrest of several mafia bosses, including Philip Rusty Rustelli and Anthony Fat Tony Salerno. Another high-profile case is that of Sammy the Bull Gravano, a member of the Gambino crime family who became an informant for the FBI. After he was arrested on racketeering charges, his testimony led to the conviction of John Gotti, the most notorious mafia boss of all time. Now, you might be wondering how the death of that one mob boss in the beginning of this video relates to all of this. Well, that mob boss, Carmine Galante, was killed because he was trying to break away from the mafia and go independent. He wanted to form his own crime syndicate that would not be beholden to the 5 families in New York. The other bosses saw this as a threat. They also didn't like the way that Galante was doing business. He was getting too powerful and successful, and they wanted to send a message to him and everyone else in the mafia that they were still in charge. So they met together and decided to kill him. It was a unanimous decision, and a very public one. They wanted to make sure that everyone knew what had happened to Galante and why. The killing of Carmine Galante was a pivotal moment in the history of the mafia. It marked the beginning of the end for the organization. The other bosses knew that Galante was right and that the mafia needed to change with the times, but they were too afraid to admit it. They were afraid of losing power and prestige. So they killed Galante and sent a message to the rest of the mafia that they were still in control. This led to a period of violence and upheaval in the mafia. Many of the old guard were killed, and the younger, more ambitious mobsters took over. This led to the formation of new alliances and the breaking of old ones. The mafia would never be the same again. In the years since then, the mafia has continued to decline in power and influence. The old ways of doing business are no longer as profitable, and the younger mobsters are more willing to cooperate with law enforcement than their predecessors. As a result, the mafia is now just a shadow of its former self. However, the mafia is still a dangerous criminal organization and should not be messed with. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave us a like and subscribe for more amazing content.